morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome everyone to the first Global Cafe of 2025. My name is Katrina Buzanis, Director of Policy Advocacy and Innovation here at the IFA, and wishing you all a very happy new year and pleased to get started on another great year of Global Cafes. So, arising from the COVID-19 pandemic, the Global Cafe at IFA was created to be a point of connection amongst colleagues working in the field of aging with and on behalf of millions of older people. And as Luana mentioned, this is the 5th year of our Global Cafe. And for 5 years, it has been an opportunity to connect amongst colleagues and friends, share information, and showcase the stories and experiences of older people while getting a deeper understanding of the barriers being experienced and the solutions being created in partnership. And so 2025 is an important year. It marks the halfway point of the UN Decade of Healthy Aging, which is a concerted and multi-stakeholder movement to improve the lives of older people across key action areas and enablers. And while strides have been made, there is still much work to do to ensure the rights, health, and well-being of older people. And IFA plans to be central to these efforts, working in tandem and in partnership with valued thought leaders, advocates, and stakeholders. And for today's Global Cafe, IFA is very pleased to welcome and introduce IFA's newly appointed Secretary General, Mr. Gregor Sneddon, for a conversation on the future of aging and also our plans here at IFA. So appointed as the Secretary General of the IFA as of November 4th, Gregor is dedicated to justice and equity for all people, and he's most recently served as Executive Director of Help Age Canada. Gregor's leadership has been exemplified both nationally and internationally. So under Gregor's leadership, Help Age Canada was the first national responder to under-resourced older people during the COVID-19 pandemic in Canada. And additionally, globally, he's led the development of Global Affairs Canada funded programs with Help Age International in, a number of countries, including Ethiopia, Ukraine, Moldova, and Poland. And he also built the Help Age Canada Global Response Program, initiating kind of a number of humanitarian projects. So Gregor's academic background includes a Bachelor of Business Administration, as well as a Bachelor of Theology and Masters of Pastoral Theology from St. Paul University, and a Master's of Theology in Eastern Christian Studies. So welcome, Gregor, and I'm very pleased to introduce you to this group at the Global Cafe.
Thank you very much, Katrina. I'm just thrilled to be here and so excited to see so many friends and colleagues here joining us. It's a real privilege to be here, and I can still remember the initial global cafes with Dr. Jane Barrett back in the day in COVID-19, and it was just extraordinary during that time to gather with so many and to hear and to listen. And I can even remember traveling. I believe it was in Kenya somewhere, and somebody came up to me and said, "Oh, I saw you on a Global Cafe once, just as an attendant." So it's a great program, and it's really a privilege and joy to participate in this way with all of you all over the world. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Gregor. And yeah, so great for this to be our 5th year convening the Global Cafe. So we really want to use this opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, Gregor. And so, we're going to kind of start at the beginning. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story, and how did you become involved in the field of aging?
Yeah, well, it's kind of a personal story, which which I'll explain, not maybe personal in the way you might think, but I had kind of an eclectic background, and I have to tip my hat to the experience of living with some elders, Abkhazian elders of the Caucasus, for several years I guess it was in my 20s, which was a profound experience for me. The Caucasus and the Abkhazia is home to some of the oldest living people in the world. And when an elder enters the room, everybody stands without question, and such a deference to elders. And it really made a mark on me in those early years. But really, I'm the kind of person that's very curious. I'm just tend to be quite interested in people and engaging in kind of communion with other people. I was a musician in my very early days. I traveled to New Orleans where I played music for many years. I was a blues player and jazz and some Zydeco. And I can even remember then some of the greatest compliment you could get as a blues guitar player would be, wow, you sound like an old man. You play like an old man, That was the greatest compliment you could receive because it meant you really played with feeling and soul, and you only stated what needed to be said. I also love all of the performing arts, and that encounter with people has always been a theme in my life. I was an entrepreneur for many years, and that again, being an entrepreneur, anyone who is in business or works in organizations knows working with other people is just a tremendous joy and privilege to work with others and to especially work with a team and watch them and see them grow. But when you engage and you work closely with people and you experience the suffering of others, you can't help but have your heart opened, and that certainly was the case for me. When I traveled throughout the world through the Middle East, where my some of my family is from. And when I lived in New Orleans, the experience of suffering of others, of structural or institutional racism or inequity, it just leaves a mark on you as you walk with the other. And that really has always been a great driver for me. And I ended up being drawn into working in the church. And I was a parish priest for many years, Anglican, in the Diocese of Ottawa. And I worked a lot with street ministry and amongst the under-resourced, those facing homelessness or homeless. And that really was an incredible experience. And that was really working with a lot of older people. In many ways in the West, the church is one of the last intergenerational institutions that is in many ways declining as a public institution. But it was a remarkable experience for me, and to encounter the great privilege of walking with people in their later years, that penultimate season of life, onto death, with their families and with individuals and with people that don't have anybody, people who maybe live on the street and so on, and to experience uh, the effects of crippling loneliness and isolation amongst older people, even in a wealthy country like Canada, really left a mark on me. It was at that time while I was in that work that I began doing further graduate studies in theology, and my interest was really in the nature of personhood, of consciousness, of the will. Why is there suffering? Kind of some of these big questions, and what is this mystery? What was there before the Big Bang, and what is our relationship to the fullness of life? And in those initial studies, if, as you know, in the Western tradition, this word that we use, God, is a person. In fact, three persons. And I struggled with this question. It was a difficult question for me to understand or to explore. And so I started, as a good researcher, doing my definitions, working definitions, to discover that there is no definition for the word person. Person is really just a concept. It's a concept that was developed in the third and fourth century, and etymologically, it comes from the Greek prosopon, of a mask. In Greek theater and the Greek tragedies, it was the prosopon, a mask. So this idea of person is really just a concept. It's a mystery. it's a fullness, and we use the term all of the time, and but it really is just a concept. I mean, in fact, a corporation can be a person. So um, this really moved me to explore and understand that our experience of life is so very personal in the sense that we experience life with our whole being, our senses, touch, taste, smell, cognitive, our reasoning, intuition, memory, relationships, and emotion. And that is what this human experience is. It's a wholly personal of how we relate to the world, to the universe, how we find meaning. It's very personal with our whole person. You know, one of the great Western saints or Eastern saints, even Irenaeus of Lyon says, you know, the glory of the universe is the human person fully alive, is you in the fullness of your truest self, reflecting and engaging back into the world. So in a sense, a person is this constellation of relationships, and it's an intersection, an encounter of perception, reflection, environment. And I really came to see that as a great way of understanding what we now understand as the life course. The life course, this remarkable journey from out of nothing, we begin into this, born into history, into this world, and in someday we exit this life. And the every stage of life is this remarkable journey of the life course, with the penultimate flowering or unfolding of that mystery in older age. Um, so that for me was a real penny drop for me, and has really motivated me to engage in this work. A few years ago, our family made a transition, and I found myself as the executive director of Help Age Canada just before the pandemic. And that was just an incredible, remarkable experience. And working all over the world and also in Canada, and had the privilege of working with a great team and meeting so many incredible um, colleagues and people all over the world, and getting to walk with and experience the journey, the life course of older people in all kinds of uh, settings, including humanitarian crisis globally. Um, and so here I am today, and that's really what kind of motivates me and has moved me into working with all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Gregor, for that. That was, I see some people giving some applause. That was a kind of beautiful opening remarks, and very powerful, kind of to outline, how it all in your kind of journey connects together. And I think that's an amazing thing about, working in the field of aging. And so many people have this really kind of treasured journey of how they've ended up here, and how that has made them, passionate to work to improve the lives of older people. So thank you so much for that. And I think to dive a little bit deeper, I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you've learned about leadership and collaboration to improve the lives of older people throughout your various different pieces of work. And because you've truly been in so many different types of work, so can you tell us a little bit about what you've learned, and how that influences your work today here at IFA?
Oh, wow. Well, I think one of the things that I remember learning about leadership is to surround yourself with people much smarter than you are, which is what I've done at the IFA with people like yourself, Katrina and Luana, and our team, is to surround yourself with great people, and to work with your circle, and leveraging one another's strengths, and looking out into the world together. And that by extension to me is it's always about building trusting relationships, saying what you doing what you say you're going to do, and working together for a future. I really believe in being person-centered. It's really important for me to build relationship and commune with other, and allowing the gifts and strengths of those you work with to build impact. Um, to go where the momentum is, and creating space for opportunity to grow. I remember working with someone on strategic planning, and they said, strategic planning or for an organization is less about white knuckling it and trying just really hard to assemble something to hit an objective. Rather, it's getting your foot off the throat of the being of that organization so that it can become what it already is, or what its identity already is, like the tree already in the seed. So it's kind of a way of embracing an arriving future and creating the space to allow what is being called forth to be. And I think that this work that we're doing in aging is just that, because we know that the world is aging. And it's less about us trying to make something happen as opposed to getting out of the way to allow what needs to happen to happen. Because we all know what needs to happen. And if we allow that to happen in our relationships and engage with one another to help build those structures, to build those policy frameworks, to provide the space for education, to make room for the other, uh, it's going to open for us all, because that is where the world is going, whether we like it or not. So we can shout at the dark and try to ignore. But the truth is, as we all know, everybody on this call, that the future is aging and we need to prepare the way to get there. I always think that it's far more important to work on your viewpoint rather than sorry, excuse me, it's better to improve your point of view or your viewpoint rather than your point of view. In that, instead of focusing on your opinions or your ideas, your personal point of view is to constantly be stepping back for a greater viewpoint, to embrace new information, new friends, new partners, new opportunities as the way opens ahead of us. Hope that doesn't sound too flaky, but you asked about
No.
that, so there you go.
No, not at all. I think that's a great response and some great things that I think will be amazing for you to take forward here at IFA. So I'm going to now I kind of want to move into talking about some of the challenges that older adults are facing globally. So what do you see as some of the most pressing challenges that older adults, face in our world today? And what are some of the strategies that we have to address them effectively?
I think that all of us as world citizens, and those of us who are engaging in this work or any humanitarian work, or not, anybody and everybody, you know, I think we need to embrace this idea that we are world citizens, and our world order is shaking. It is so fragile, and we witness tremendous tragedies, some unprecedented, even in our century, and yet so many remain silent, because they can't, or because of the political undercurrents and the systems that we've created to try and govern ourselves and look to a future as world citizens are shuddering. And I think we all need to pay attention, with compassion and care, and look to that partnership to our fellow humanity, and how can we really work together, and that affects everyone throughout the life course. So I think although we're talking about older people, I think we need to start there. Uh, and flowing from that, I think, as we're all aware, ageist policy and social constructs in a rapidly aging world. Just as an example, as we discovered in COVID-19, that much of the world doesn't have any disaggregated data on older people. In many places, after the age of 55, you're just a data number. And that just speaks to just, full stop, period. That just speaks to the attention and the narrative of how we organize ourselves, and the narrative we use of describing our common humanity leaves older people out. We really need to address that. That's both in every place, in every country, and within my own self. I have to be honest and look within on my own ageist viewpoints and points of view. I think that that speaks to our rapidly aging population, and another big one is climate change that will be felt especially in low and middle income countries or under-resourced countries who don't have who in many cases will experience the actual geological or environmental brunt of environmental and climate change, but also the wherewithal to respond. And as vulnerable populations, often older populations, we need to pay attention and support and work with our partners to respond appropriately. I think the disparity and disappropriation and allocation of wealth, our siloed health systems, in my idea that I shared with you about the wholeness of a human person as this intersection of relationships, and it's kind of mirrors also what it is to live together as community. That really we should be working towards building ecosystems of well-being, that health and health in our environment, relationships, transportation, age-friendly environments, the immunization, all of these cross-cutting and intersectoral disciplines need to come together to build an ecosystem of well-being for all humanity, for the life course to thrive and engage. And I think we sometimes motivated and directed by our funders and by our the outcomes that we need uh, to meet our shareholders' value, can drive the agenda. And I think we need to look more holistically. Um, I think we're poor science, the lack of evidence-based science, the capacity in our health systems, for example. When we talk about immunization, we know that it's one of the biggest levers of positive health outcomes for older people, and it's cross-sectoral. I just learned a few days ago that someone over the age of 75 in Canada who goes to the hospital for pneumonia has a 1 in 5 chance of cardiac arrest. I mean, these kinds of, not to spit out, facts, there's lots of facts out there, but we have to think holistically as the IFA strives to do when we talk about our horizontal and vertical advocacy to bring together a multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral view to engage with the issues that we're facing. I think age-friendly environment and design, our physical structures were not created for this time. I know one of my favorite Canadian cities, St. John's, Newfoundland. I mean, I think every single building in that town has stairs. And when I visited older people there, and they're just frustrated because they can't visit their families for Thanksgiving or Easter or Christmas or head out of stairs. Just a simple example like that. I think also I'll just add, I think brain health is a huge one. 100 years ago, the average lifespan was 34, 35 years old. If you include infant mortality, a little older, I believe in the 55, if you don't include infant mortality. And today in Canada, it's in the 80s. But we're living longer and we have to address the statistic, someone develops dementia every 3 seconds. We'll reach 78 million people with some form of dementia in 2030. Um, so I think we need a person-centered preventative healthcare system and building these ecosystems of well-being that address the whole person.
Mhm.
If,
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was just also going to say that I think as part of this work is we really need to be genuine and honest, especially those of us working in more wealthy countries, about how we work with our partners, our friends, our colleagues, our fellow world citizens in low and middle income countries in true partnership. We have this work of decolonization that we speak about, which is incredibly important. Although there is no actual word for decolonization in most other languages, but I think what we need is the humility to decouple ourselves from the power and authority that we've bestowed upon ourselves to be able to truly partner in addressing problems, developing solutions, monitoring, evaluation, and engagement on how we work with one another. And I think that's a lot of work ahead of us. Often it seems the development sector sometimes seems like it can exist for its own self-perpetuation. And I think that there's real opportunity for us to look honestly and closely at the way that we work together.
Mhm. Yes, thank you, Gregor, for kind of a very robust response, and I think mentioning a lot of things that I know for a fact that IFA will be picking up on a lot of the things that you've mentioned in the coming year and hopefully in the years to come as well. I do want to go to a question in the chat from Shmuel, who is a regular contributor at IFA's Global Café, and he's asking what opportunities have been created from the COVID-19 pandemic to improve well-being for older adults, especially in relation to low socioeconomic groups of the population and the creation of more age-friendly environments in different countries and around the world.
Well, thanks, Shul. Thanks for the question. I think we all, well, in the IFA most certainly is working very closely with the Decade of Healthy Aging and those four action areas: combating ageism, age-friendly environments, integrated care, and long-term care. I, I, I think that this work that we're doing on the decade, and we're halfway through the decade now, is really a robust way to engage globally on addressing these issues. And although the decade launched in 2020 or 2021 up to 2030 was just on the heels of the pandemic. The pandemic immediately opened our eyes well, first of all, our ageist structures. In Canada alone, of all G8 countries, we had the largest number of deaths in long-term care. The ageist structures of which we operate, the discovery, as I mentioned earlier, of the lack of disaggregated data everywhere, but also it highlighted the intersection of uh, disciplines and sectors that are part of the life course. So, only immunization alone for COVID-19, of course, absolutely critically important. But it also highlighted, the need for transportation, the social determinants of health, participation in community, digital literacy, the ability to work with our multidisciplinary and multi-sector partners was immediately exposed. And I think that's been potentially the greatest light or gift that we've received out of COVID-19 is the awareness of the need for a fully integrated health system and addressing the fullness of the life course. I think that was really been an incredible highlight. I I'm not, I'm hesitant to say that we have made vast improvements. Most uh, models will suggest, epidemiological models will suggest that we're due for another pandemic or epidemic this before 2030. Are we prepared? Have we learned? Have we made the changes? In Canada, I'm not sure we really have in long-term care. Um, but I'm tremendously grateful to the WHO and the decade that we're as we continue to work, and I think there's lots tremendous opportunity out there, and the movement of organizations to engage on many of those issues that you spoke of.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Gregor. And I think, yeah, there's, potentially some enlightening that came from that, but I think, very clear that there's so much more work to do. So I am going to go to another question in the chat here from Isaac. Isaac, I'm not sure if you're on the line and available to pose your question, but if you are, please do feel free to come forward and pose your question.
Yes. Hello. Um, First and
Hi.
foremost, thank you, Gregor. I'm thoroughly enamored by the way you articulate yourself very well. It's very much a treat to be here. So my question is relating our increasingly digitally reliance in the world that we live in today. So I work with older adults in terms of technology support, ensuring that older adults have adequate access to the internet and the digital skills needed to participate in our digital world of today. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on, in this increasingly digital world that we live in what ways do you think that digital technology is affecting old age, both positively and negatively, and how it's affecting the way, I guess, both positively and negatively as well, how we speak about and think about aging as a whole? So, yeah,
Thanks,
thank you.
Isaac. Yeah, no, that's a great conversation piece. I think certainly there are challenges with technology and aging. It can exclude populations. I know in some municipalities, even here in Canada, where they've switched to a almost exclusively digital engagement with government, it can be very exclude many older people. But it also opens the door to tremendous possibilities for the future. And I think we are beholden to embrace what is before us in a responsible way, with all kinds of technology to enhance our experience of aging. We, had the experience, coming out of the pandemic. Once the Canadian government stepped in. We were doing humanitarian relief throughout Canada in local communities and community-based organizations, and we began to um, think about, what can we do next now that the government has mobilized. And we looked at digital literacy, and we were moved by and compelled by stories of, older people, for example, in hospice who couldn't meet with their loved ones who were at home because of the pandemic. And so we started looking at how could we create programs where we would provide tablets and digital literacy to the person in hospice and the person at home, or in under-resourced communities, providing, tablets and digital literacy programs for older people. We engaged in a really interesting program in Canada's north with Inuit people, Inuit-led program with youth and older people using digital technology and digital literacy and really neat applications. A satellite, for example, app on a tablet that could measure the depth of the ice at the flow edge where the animals are, where Inuit folks would go to hunt, and we would try to engage in this technology, and it was very exciting, and there's tremendous work going on in that field in digital literacy and in Canada and elsewhere. Just one caveat that I would say that was a discovery for myself, for our team rather, was that um, again, as I'd mentioned earlier, we need to be, I think, more forthright and willing to engage at the front end with our local partners, that it is led locally, that it's less prescriptive. It kind of felt, we would joke and say, we're going to give you digital literacy whether you want it or not, because we thought it was such a great idea, and we had funders and we were out there, teaching people how to do digital literacy, but it didn't always work the way we intended. Sometimes it was a bit of what's the word, a square in a round hole, or maybe I'm not saying that right. So I think we need to co-design and really work with partners to understand their needs and work more in cooperation with one another as we address issues like digital literacy for the way forward.
Mhm. Thank you,
Thank
Gregor.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Isaac, as well for your question. So I want to, there's just one, another question in the chat from Dominic. Dominic, did you want to unmute and pose your question?
About the indigenous wisdom.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. And this kind of relates to climate change as well. But I've been attending the IFA cafes for a little while now, and I can't remember whether this idea of incorporating indigenous knowledge, indigenous wisdom in addressing our problems on a societal and countrywide basis and so on. I can't remember if there's been some discussion around that. So I'm wondering if the IFA would be interested in incorporating, bringing on board people from the indigenous communities in order to share their wisdom and the idea of that two-eyed seeing. When we talk about climate change, for instance, and its effects on people and effects on the most vulnerable and so on, we need to remember that we can't solve a problem by using the same type of thinking that brought the problem on in the first place.
Mm.
And so let's expand how we look at things. Let's bring in wisdom from other sectors, particularly indigenous knowledge, the idea that we need to be thinking in terms of 7 generations down the line and what kind of a world do we want them to inherit. So yeah, I just put that out there. I really appreciate what you've shared so far this morning, Gregor, and I would love to see more involvement from the Indigenous community.
Thank you, Dominic. I think that's a really exciting topic and thing to share. And I think that we, as wisdom keepers, First Nations peoples all over the world, absolutely are leaders in these conversations. And I think there's tremendous opportunity to engage and participate and learn from them. We had some great opportunity for the launch of the Decade of Healthy Aging. I had the privilege of working with a participatory video project in Manitoulin Island with 7 First Nations, elders from First Nations who had the opportunity to learn to make their own movie and tell the story of aging, which was a remarkable experience. I tell you, it was just so humbling for me to learn and listen and work closely with them as they shared their story, but also the great dignity and care that they shared about their community, and especially their young people was tremendously moving. And I would love the opportunity to engage more deeply. I can also share a great story of our friends in Ethiopia, Help Age Ethiopia, they're exploring a really cool technology program for pastoralists. So these are indigenous peoples living pastoralists that would, through their migrations, they need to constantly be looking for water. You know, where is the water, but also avoiding conflict where there's fighting and soldiers. So they're developing this satellite system on an app where they can navigate and identify where the water is, the oasis, or I can't remember the word, and avoid difficult areas and situations. So they're using this wisdom of pastoral life and working with the land, but also embracing technology to support that beautiful life and way of being. So that's just another little example that I think is kind of cool.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dominic, for your question, and Gregor. That's some great examples and some great responses. So I want to shift focus a little bit into, what really drew you to the work of IFA, and what kind of brings you here with us today, and also maybe thinking a little bit about, what your plans are. How do you kind of envision the next milestones and achievements of the organization, and how are kind of partnerships really key in that?
Well, that's a big question, Katrina. Covering a lot of ground there.
Yeah.
Well, the IFA, I think that the amazing thing about the IFA is, as President, our President, Graham Pryor says, it's kind of a mystical organization. It's somehow this amazing collaboration of so many people and we do so many great things together in the world. I think that the IFA's really view towards the whole person and addressing the agenda of aging from a holistic perspective. We talked about the vertical and horizontal advocacy, the cross-sectoral and multidisciplinary lens through which we look at aging, and that the life course. Aging, our friends at Help Age International say, aging is cool. Everybody's doing it. The life course is aging is not just about being older. We know that for a fully preventative and healthy life, we have to look at the whole of our lives. And the IFA chooses to look at the whole person. We could be the International Federation of Being Human. The life course and aging is about being human. It's about living out the fullness of our lives. We live in a time-bound world after all. Um, so so the IFA, I think, is working globally with all of our partners to collaborate to build this constellation of relationships, curating these partnerships and networks to leverage one another's strengths, to help one another build capacity, to learn from one another's, our First Nations sisters and brothers and elders, from our local partners in low and middle income countries, to all of our the various disciplines that we work with, both in all over the world, is a way for us to bring together this constellation to really have impact for the future. Sometimes it feels to me like, you're out on a little surfboard and there's this tidal wave coming of demographic change. And all of us need to kind of link arms here because we need one another. None of us can do this, any of this alone. And we need one another to work together and be the agents of change and influence to create a world for all.
Thank you, Gregor. I know it's a big question,
I
but
can mention,
yeah,
sorry, I'm thinking through a bit of
go
your
ahead.
further questions, Katrina, some
Yeah.
landmarks for this year is I would be remiss if I didn't remind everybody about the exciting conference, the 17th Global Conference on Aging, YEBO, Yes, Action and Aging, Evidence, Policy and Practice, in September 10th to 12th in Cape Town, South Africa. The 9th being a pre-conference. We just invite everybody to come. We hope it's going to be one of our largest conferences ever, and we have some amazing participants. It's just really going to be exciting to have that event there in beautiful Cape Town with many of our African friends and global partners. And we just welcome you all and hope you'll be able to come and join us at the conference.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you, Gregor. And that's maybe a nice segue because I was actually going to ask you kind of what are you most excited about? If there's any kind of exciting events or, things that you're looking forward to as we embark on this next year at the IFA.
Um, well, the conference for sure. I mean, we are just so excited. It's hard to stay on top of all the momentum and excitement that's leading up to that conference. So I'm kind of eclipsed a little bit by that conference because it's just front and center for us as we head to September. I'm really excited to engage with our membership. I wish I had, an 7, 8, 9, 10 days a week just to be getting on the phone and speaking with all of the amazing partners that we have. Our membership is really what the IFA is. It's all of you. We're the secretariat, kind of holding the pen, but it's all of you that makes the IFA what the IFA is. And I just can't wait to meet with you and engage with you and look at how we can be the best we can be for each other and how the best we can be for the world. So that's kind of my hope over the coming year is to really try to engage with our membership, to build out that membership and to work with all of you. So I'm really excited about that.
Mhm. And I think, Gregor, we are kind of coming to the end of the hour, but I kind of want to end on something that I think is obviously foundational to all of the work that we do, as you've just mentioned, is, our partnership and our, ability to collaborate. And so I want to just end on this question of, what kind of strategies do you see going forward in order for IFA to really strengthen these avenues of partnership and be collaborating and working together with all the people on the line and beyond?
Um, from a strategic point of view, I think the IFA, you know, first and foremost looks towards and embraces arm in arm our partner, the WHO, and the Decade of Healthy Aging is primary to our work. Our continued work with our colleagues at the UN are moving forward the convention on the rights of older people, working with government and all of our global partners um, to really build out these relationships to have impact together is really where I see the future of the IFA and this work, this shared work that we all have to do in building a world where we can work together. I think we need to be bold and humble in how we work with one another and how we engage with this world order that we're all a part of that is struggling right now. And sometimes, we need to look beyond maybe our immediate first needs to put a hand across the aisle, as it were, to work with our friends globally. A great one of the great saints, Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, he says, out beyond yes and no, there's a clearing, and I'll meet you there.
Thank you so much, Gregor. Okay, so I mean, we are coming just about to the end of the session, so I will kind of take the opportunity to introduce our next week's speaker and invite you all to join that session. And Gregor, I'll just give you, a minute or so to kind of collect your thoughts on some key takeaway messages for the group. So next week's speaker, we are very excited to have Miss Bryn Bowman, who is the CEO of the Center to Advance Palliative Care and assistant professor at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. And we'll be talking about achieving sustainable change in the care of older adults with serious illness. So we're launching right into another year of the Global Cafe and another, roster of really great experts and speakers. I will note, thank you to everyone who did kind of let us know what you'd like to see going forward with the Global Cafe and what topics you'd like to cover and things like that. Please, if you do have any other thoughts on, what kind of topics you would like to see discussed in this forum, please do, feel free to contact, our IFA team and our IFA staff, because we're really hoping to have another great year of sessions for everyone. So Gregor, I'll hand it back to you just for some final kind of key takeaway messages.
Thanks, Katrina. I feel very again privileged to be here with all of you, and I just really commit to you, the membership, and all of our friends and colleagues around the world that are in this great work, that have been moved by the dignity of older persons, and that work that we're called to prepare the world now and in the future. The life course addresses the fullness of being human, and with the penultimate stage, older age, being the fulfillment, the flowering of this great journey that we're all working together on, and this mysterious road that we're on. And we're beholden, I think, that the one thing that we can say for sure that of this mysterious life is that we need to work hard to take care of each other, to love one another. And I think that it's working together and in partnership, in looking to a lens of the intersection of our disciplines and sectors, and working together for a better future for all people, and older people is a great mantle for us all to carry forward. And I very much look forward to working with you all on that road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gregor. And yeah, a great start to the new year. Just to echo some of the comments in the chat, and of course, the IFA team is very excited to be here to support you as the Secretary General. And yeah, we're really, of course, very excited for another great year of work together. So thank you to everyone for taking the time to join today's session. And of course, we're very pleased to have the opportunity to introduce Gregor. And I know you'll all be seeing him quite a lot. So this is just the beginning. Of course, thank you to the IFA team, Luana, and the other members of our team that helped us to put on the Global Cafe every single week. We look forward to seeing you at next week's session, and wishing you all a really great weekend.